I call this meeting, the Central Florida Facilitators, of 9958, to order. We have a guest this evening. Welcome back, Doug.
Thank you.
This time I do know where the bathrooms are. Out that hall, to the left. They will be on the right-hand side. If you have not signed the logbook yet, we will get it for you later this evening. If you have a PDA, beeper, or cell phone, please turn it off now. At Toastmasters, we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Through this mission, each Toastmaster gains a clear understanding of the club's purpose, and the organization as a whole benefits from a shared set of values and goals. Please help me welcome our pledge leader this evening, Mark Lockery.
Hey, Mark!
Thank you, Richard. Political correctness is at an all-time high. We have to go out of our way to not offend any person when we open our mouth. We must make every effort not to criticize a person based on their sex, their race, their weight, their height, their heritage. Everyone is special, and everyone is perfect. Life is good. Not to be outdone by Target's efforts for total inclusiveness, Walmart has announced this week that it will begin selling what many people refer to as ugly fruit. This is a fruit that has been damaged or scarred while on the farm. It used to be that this fruit was just thrown away because nobody wanted to buy a fruit that was bruised or dented. There is a new brand of apples from Washington State on its way to Walmart shelves, and it's called I'm Perfect. And these will be sold in 2-pound and 5-pound bags. And they are slightly damaged or bruised apples. They are also currently selling bruised and damaged potatoes in many of their Texas stores called Spuglies. I am happy that Walmart has taken the steps to ensure that all fruit gets a chance to be sold and eaten, not just the ones that resemble Kardashian-style beauty. So the next time you are at Walmart, pick up a bag of ugly fruit. They need love too. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please welcome our president, Mark Lockery. Thank you. Sorry I missed last week, but I am glad to be back here with you guys this week in our newly renovated room. A couple quick items. We have officer training coming up on July 30th at the Cavalry Assembly off of Fairbanks Road. And we have a club contest coming up, I think, August 31st. Our humorous speech and evaluation, if I'm not mistaken. So if you haven't ever joined a contest or would like to join a contest, this would be a great time to do so. It's a great experience. As our country begins its quadrennial exercise in political factioning, our Toastmaster is eager to stimulate our own patriotic duty. Please welcome a man who has lost every Toastmasters election, our own advanced Toastmaster Gold, Stephen Morgan.
Well, welcome. Everyone been enjoying watching the convention so far?
Yes!
Woo! I like next week much better.
Always need a good dose of fantasy to go along with everything else.
I can't take it.
From your history class, I'm sure you've already caught on that we didn't have political parties when the constitutional government we have now first formed. That eventually grew out of the squabbles that they were having during George Washington's administration. That's not to say that there weren't squabbles happening beforehand. Obviously, there were plenty of them. That's why they even had to write up the Constitution in the first place. But as part of getting the Constitution passed, you ended up with people in different opinions. Many who said they didn't want the Constitution, it wasn't a good thing, and those who were arguing for its pass. As a part of that argument, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jaye had anonymously written the Federalist Papers as the arguments in favor of the ratification of the Constitution. And this idea that we would have factions appeared and was debated within the Federalist Papers themselves. In number 10, which James Madison had written, he realized that factions could tear apart any government that we put together, whether it was under the Constitution or any other. And he figured that there were two ways to either handle those factions, being you have to either remove the cause or you have to control the effects. Well, in order to remove the cause, he said you'd have to either deny liberty, which wasn't going to be essential in any democratic system, or you have to have a homogeneous population. Everyone already agrees in the first place. Which, as you already caught on tonight, we don't. Since we're neither homogeneous and nor willing to deprive each other of liberty, then the ability to prevent factions from occurring was never going to be an option. That left it to be the alternative of you have to control the effects of factions. And in particular, the way Madison stated it was that in order to prevent factions from ripping things apart, you have to have a system that prevents a faction from becoming the majority. In a democratic system where the majority would rule and make all the decisions, his idea, therefore, would be there would be no majority, it would be several minorities. You'd have multiple factions, and none of them would ever be able to take full power, since no one would ever be able to get to majority. How amusing, therefore, it may be that when the parties finally formed in the end of the 18th century, we only ended up with two of them, and so we ended up with the concept of one would be majority and one minority. And that two-party system has held for most of our history. Those effects that they were worried about, we've seen quite a few of them. And somehow we managed to hobble along for about 240 years. What will come up next? In order to help keep us from getting too out of hand, we have our functionaries, making sure that we stay within the bounds. Beginning first with our grammarian, who I'm sure has picked an interesting word for us tonight. Jaye, please explain that for us.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and our returning guests, hopefully to be a member soon. I am your grammarian this evening, and as your grammarian, my responsibilities are first to provide the word of the day, to help expand our vocabulary and our knowledge. And I have chosen the word of the day, which is demagogue. If you have an opportunity to use it when you're speaking, please do so. I will be keeping track of those people who do use it. And everyone in here, except for Gus, will get charged 25 cents. And as your treasurer, I want to see that go in the bus over there. We've been forgetting about that. So only our guests and any brand new members who haven't done their icebreaker get to avoid that. I'll also be looking for colorful phrases and terminologies, anything that you guys may use as you speak. Now, let's get to the meat of the matter. The word of the day is demagogue. Everybody got it? Demagogue. Demagogue is a leader who seeks supporters by appealing to their greed, fear, prejudice, and hatred, and uses lies and false claims in that pursuit rather than using rational arguments, reasoned thought, and truth. And I researched that in a number of sources and pulled together the best parts of all of the sources that I found. So that is not just me speaking, in case you thought that. Here are a couple of sentences, or another bit of information. Former U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy is the classic demagogue for whom the term McCarthyism was coined, and some of the younger people in the room might not remember that, but I certainly do. The 2016 GOP nominee, here's a sentence for you, for President of the United States is a bigoted, misogynistic, racist, womanizing demagogue who preys on the greed, fears, and prejudice of his would-be followers. Do you want me to repeat it? Shall I repeat my sentence?
Please don't.
And that's all I have to say.
This year, I believe you're trying to prey on our fears at the same time.
You got it. Somebody's got to counterbalance.
For our counter this evening, Emma, please explain for our guests what you will be doing.
I'm your counter for today. What I do is count the Oz, arms, herbs, the double clutches, which is saying something twice, and the legs and their so's, and bridge words, and. I'm not going to be sounding the buzzer, even though it's, because I cannot concentrate on too many things at once, because I'm also the secretary, so I have to do all that. The fine for each infraction is 10 cents. The guests and the members who have not yet given their icebreaker will not be fined. Thank you.
And our timer this evening is in Morgan's evening.
One of the skills Toastmasters practice is to speak within a specific time. As timer, I will keep track of our prepared speeches, table topic speeches, and evaluations. Speakers must speak not less than 30 seconds under their required time and no more than 30 seconds over the maximum time. I will signal the speaker at range minimum with a green light, at midpoint with yellow light, and the red light at range maximum. I will keep track of the times and give a report on times when asked. Mr. Toastmaster.
And here to count the votes from our crazy election, our supervisor of elections is Toni Jaye.
We ask that you vote a number of times, not for the same person and the same thing, but for best speaker once, best table topic speaker once, best evaluator, and don't forget most improved speaker. You will be asked to place your votes and use this ballot. I will then collect the ballots. We'll also tally the results for the award presentations at the end of the meeting. Please also use this form to write notes to any of the participants, especially the speakers appreciate feedback, and so do the evaluators and the functionaries, and the Toastmasters and the general evaluators and the table officers. So please be generous with your comments, and I will distribute them to the appropriate person after the meeting. Thank you, Mr./Madam Toastmaster.
Reading it literally.
Oh, yeah.
What Madison was trying to describe also was that at the time when the Constitution was being debated, it was essentially the original 13 colonies as states now. There were factions certainly within the country, but they're not the same ones we're used to seeing right now. There were the slave states mostly out in the south, the middle states in between with the New England states up in the north. Those three factions tended to be where most of the politics at the time would occur. And the argument he was making was that the Constitution was designed for a big country. Because if the country were small and you had a representative democracy, you would likely find a fairly homogeneous population and there would become a majority within whatever legislation designed. And he was saying we shouldn't have that. He was saying in a big country there'd be so many different geographical constituencies that would be so different from one another that there would be no majority within any legislature. They would therefore have to find ways to cooperate and find places where they would be able to reach agreement. And therefore the Constitution was the best vehicle in order to reach that. And it was amusing that James Madison, being the one who wrote this, that when the Federalist Party collapsed after the War of 1812, it was James Madison who would be president for the 8 years that there was a one-party system in the United States. The era of good feelings. Missing that area? Well, then I'm sure you'll be ready for our first speaker. Our first speaker this evening believes one party should stay out of your bedroom and one should stay out of your bank account. Not sure which ones those are, so please welcome Jonathan Dunn, the thorn in my side.
Raise your hand if when you were little, you loved, I mean loved, spending time with your mother or your father or even both. Just gently raise your hand if you had one, and I hope you did. When I was about 6 years old, I absolutely looked up to my father like he was a superhero. He was strong, he was smart, he was funny. He never told a lie like those filthy demagogues. But my dad traveled a lot. So every weekend when he would get home, I wanted to be by his side. I wanted to essentially be my father's shadow. This one Saturday morning, I was going to venture into uncharted territory with him. He had a very stressful job, and the doctor had recommended that he get into gardening, and specifically growing rose bushes. And I had never been around a rose bush before. I'd only seen it he'd given to my mom on special occasion. So we were out in the yard, and I was squatting down, and he had a little shovel in my hand, and I was doing whatever he asked me to do, without question. I was so happy to be with him. And as I was down there, I hadn't experienced a lot of things in life to that point. And an armadillo ran across our backyard. I had never seen an armadillo. To me, it was a dinosaur. And I jumped up. I said, "Dad, you see that?" But something horrible happened to me when I jumped up. I wasn't aware of my surroundings, and when I jumped up, a giant thorn from one of the rose bushes landed into my shoulder. And I wanted to cry so bad. I didn't want to look at it. I wanted to pretend it didn't happen. I just wanted to cry. My father, being my father, immediately wanted to come to the rescue. I said, "No, Dad, no. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, Dad, it's okay." And I just wanted to brush my father off because there was something inside of me when I was young that I didn't want my father to think that I was weak. And fortunately, it was my left arm, I'm right-handed. So many hours went by and I stayed by his side, and I'm telling you, my left arm was essentially paralyzed. And I finally got in my room that night and I lifted up my shirt sleeve. And it looked horrible. And by that time, it was swollen, it was red. I didn't want to go to the doctor. I don't know if you remember when you were 6 or 7. I didn't want to go to the doctor, get a shot, whatever it might be. So I ignored it. I was really faced with a choice in that moment to deal with the thorn, pull it out, clean it out, move on, or do everything in my power to not irritate it. I picked, don't irritate it. When I was 6, I would always lay on my left-hand side. The reason I laid on my left-hand side was because I had Star Wars wallpaper in my room. And I was kind of one of those children that was scared to go off into my own room. So I would look at Star Wars characters on the wall and think about that was positive. That's how I would fall asleep. So I started laying on the right-hand side. This thorn was guiding my life. I woke up the next morning, there was just a big boil there. The thorn was essentially under my skin at that point. My left arm was basically without function at that point. And as years and years went by, my left arm was never right. It always hurt. If I bumped it into anything, I wanted to scream out loud. So when I'd go through doorways, I made it a habit to go through them like that. When I would play in the woods, I would clear out the woods so that I wouldn't hit my left arm. And then I learned about ibuprofen and other pain relieving things. And I started taking those because it hurt, man. It hurt so bad. And then as I got older, and I tried to do everything in my power to not feel the pain, I started rationalizing a lot of things as normal, a lot of self-destructive behaviors. I started drinking a lot because when I would drink, I wouldn't feel the pain. Now, I told everyone around me I was just a party hard guy. It was fun. It was normal. It feels good. It makes complete sense to do self-destructive things to the body, doesn't it? I mean, that's what everybody else does. But it was really complete bull. I was absolutely lying to myself. Drinking made it not hurt. I think that's why a lot of people drink these days. I think they'll lie and say it's fun, it's sophisticated, it's energetic, it's a way to fit in. But I think really it's not much different than that thorn. I think they're trying to make some sort of internal pain go away. When that didn't work, I started doing something else to make the pain go away. I'm like, if I build my muscles up really big, that thorn's not going to hurt. And I wanted to do it as quickly as I could. So I found a local man at the gym who was huge. I knew he wasn't doing it normally, and I figured out what he was doing. And I started using illegal substances to build myself up. I think you know what happened though. Didn't make the pain go away. The pain was still there. By this stage of my life, my whole entire life was not about living life. It was about avoiding the pain of the thorn in my arm that started when I was 6 years old. And we're talking 30 years have gone by that I had not dealt with this pain. 30 years that I lost because I didn't want to deal with it. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, choose to live your life. Things are going to rub against you. They're going to irritate you. But I can tell you, as I stand in here tonight, it's easier to just pull those things out, clean them up, and move on. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your icebreaker. Madam Timer, please give us a minute, and everyone take the opportunity to use the informal evaluation forms to write any feedback you may have for Jonathan. Our next speaker this evening is Jessica Guthrie. She's giving speech number 2 out of the Company of Communication. Jessica is currently serving as the Division D Director for District 84. In this role, she will be giving several speeches to Toastmasters clubs and for district events held in Division D. To help prepare for those presentations, she is testing out a speech with our Central Florida Facilitators Club and appreciates any feedback on the content or presentation. The theme for Division D for the 2016-2017 term is 3D, Dynamic, Determined, and Distinguished. To talk about how the Toastmasters organization can help you become dynamic, determined, and distinguished, please help me welcome Distinguished Toastmaster Jessica Guthrie.
So you've joined Toastmasters, or are about to join Toastmasters, and you're thinking, what have I gotten myself into? What's going on in Toastmasters? Have you ever wondered what happened in Toastmasters beyond the Toastmasters Club? Let me tell you a little bit about my Toastmasters journey. I joined Toastmasters in 2001, believe it or not, and I joined a club. And all I really knew about Toastmasters was a place where I could practice and improve my public speaking skills, which was great. That was perfect. That was what I was looking for. And I learned everything I did about Toastmasters through my club, other club members, and other Toastmasters. It wasn't until about 2003 where myself and Tim Chastain, who you may know through this club through the Tim Chastain Award, started talking about how this would be such a great organization for trainers and developers. We were part of an organization now it's called ATD, the Association of Training and Development, which enables facilitators, trainers, development. And we were always very surprised about the speaking skills of that group and thought, wouldn't it be great if they had an opportunity for a safe place to go practice and learn their public speaking skills. Tim knew more about the Toastmasters organization than I did at the time. I'd only been a Toastmaster about a year, maybe a year and a half. And so he helped navigate the Toastmasters organization. How do we get help? And we found Central Florida other Toastmasters that were willing to come help us. We did demo meetings, and we actually started the club. And as you know, we chartered on June 30th, 2003. That was really my first introduction to Toastmasters beyond a Toastmasters club. Then later that year, a very good friend of mine, who was a Toastmaster, was the conference chair for the Toastmasters conference that year. And as you know, similar to what Steve and Susan are going to be doing for our steampunk conference in the fall, there was a lot going on, and there was a lot of involvement with Toastmasters at the time from all over the state. And so working with her and trying to help her and being involved in my first conference, I really started to learn that this is a huge organization, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to be able to support, at the end of the day, each of us as members of Toastmasters. So it's a bit of a mystery. You keep hearing all these terms called TI, headquarters, division, area, and there's all of these terms. Well, what are those, and how is the organization put together in order to be able to help each of us? Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today, and then how that actually works. The leaders in our organization are primarily volunteer, and they are not demagogues. They are here truly to help each of us as we go along our Toastmasters journey. Today, in my role as Division Director, I'd like to unveil the mystery of the organization and help you better understand the district and division area goals that we have going on, and help you experience what you can within the organization and be able to share your experiences with others. So what is this division, district, and area? Well, let's talk about the governance model. I've handed out or distributed a map of the service to members. Now this is from the TI website. I think there's enough for everybody. If not, there's a few extra in the back. And you can also get it online. But I'm going to walk through this and tell you a little bit about how we're organized and then why that matters. You'll see at the very top is our membership. Now, believe it or not, Toastmasters has 400,000 members across the globe. And we're in 135 countries. This is a huge organization to be able to coordinate. And so you can imagine at the club level, we only see what pretty much happens in our club. But who organizes that? Who puts those policies and procedures together? How does that get communicated? How does that get shared so that it's a consistent experience across the organization? I'm actually going to start at the bottom and show you how that's supported. World headquarters. You'll hear the term TI, Toastmasters International. World headquarters is based in Santo Margarita, Rancho, okay, I'm not getting that right, but I'll get it right. Which is based in California. We have a CEO, Dan Rex, who is a paid person. We have 140 people actually who work at headquarters who are paid folks that help us with all of the administrative types behind all this. But the actual running of the organization and leadership of the organization is done by a board of directors, and you'll see that here, the next step on here. The board of directors is elected from the different regions that are across the United States and the world. There are actually 14 regions, so there's 14 directors on this board. 10 of those regions are actually based in the United States. It's still a predominantly US-based organization, but there are 4 external to the US, and they're growing, so there may be some changes in that in the near future. But the board is made up of 14 members, and they come from those regions. They represent all Toastmasters, not just those regions, but they come across all of those. Those international directors, and ours, for our region representative is Dennis Woolbridge, and many of you have met him. He was actually at our banquet a few weeks ago. Those directors also have an executive team, and they're voted in, and there's 4 leaders there, international president, etc. I won't get into all that, but basically they create this board that helps guide all of the policies and procedures and goals in the educational programs of Toastmasters. It next breaks down for those regions into districts. Our region is Region 8, which is the whole Southeast US, and that's made up of about 11 districts.
And South America.
Okay.
We're all of South America.
Okay. And so there's 11 districts. We are District 84. Now the districts, they are the primary way that we work together as a group to be able to disseminate information and work across the groups. Districts are broken down into divisions. Divisions are broken down into areas. Our District 84 currently is the northeast part of Florida, from Orlando all the way up through to Jacksonville, and actually about halfway through the state, to the west. There's 8 divisions that are part of that. Our division is Division D, which is the part that is in North Orlando and up through Sanford. And then that's made up of 6 areas. So you can see this starts breaking down. I'm really going to be working on a big map so we can show how this all breaks down. But it breaks down to the area, and for our division, it's myself as your division director, and actually Toni is your Area 42 director, which is the one that controls our club here and helps work with different clubs. There's 4 to 6 clubs, and that's what is actually at the end of the day the way we kind of organize ourselves around those clubs. So what can we do to help these groups and the divisions to do that? First of all, really, there's 2 main things that the district, division, and areas are focused on. One is strengthening our existing clubs, and the second is to build new clubs, to share this great message of Toastmasters among the groups. To strengthen existing clubs, your area director works with your team and the club officers to be able to do club visits, help you towards your success programs, which are built really to make the club strong and to be able to drive that strength. They provide training to you and to your officers, as you heard earlier, the cavalry zone training that's coming up, and for TLI, which is Toastmaster Leadership Institute. They promote contests so we can see the best of the best and be able to be inspired by those. They produce conferences, we just talked about that, which are opportunities to connect, really to do more training, to build camaraderie and learn about other folks who are doing it from a Toastmasters perspective. We communicate policies, procedures, help about program changes, etc. And then again, as I said, we attract and build new clubs in order to continue to grow the Toastmasters message and really to try to help people with their communication and leadership skills. The district theme is Run for the Roses, which is around the horse racing theme. And our division chose the theme of dynamic, determined, and distinguished. And why did we choose that? Well, dynamic means to be a driving force. Determined is about intent. And then distinguished is successful and recognized for excellence. So if you put it together, the 3 Ds of dynamic, determined, and distinguished means to be a driving force intent on being successful and recognized for excellence. And that's really what we're striving So what can you do to be dynamic, determined, and distinguished? Well, participate in new clubs as they're forming. You can go in and to a demo meeting and just take a functionary role, be a speaker, show people how the Toastmasters program works, so you can help other folks learn more about Toastmasters. Pursue your communication and leadership goals. That's really the crux of what we're trying to do, is make sure that every member has that ability to be able to do that, to be able to gain that self-confidence and have that personal growth. Invite members to come experience the Toastmasters world and see what that's like. Participate in contests, compete, or go as a guest or a functionary. You know, be involved in those competitions. It's really fun to see the best of the best and be inspired by them. Attend trainings to improve your leadership skills, and ultimately support your club officers, as well as your area director, and work closely with them as well. If you strengthen your Toastmasters experience, it actually strengthens the Toastmaster Club, and that strengthens Toastmasters altogether. It's all by word of mouth. So work really hard, and you'll be able to be 3D, dynamic, determined, and distinguished. Mr. Toastmaster.
Madam Timer, give us 1 minute so that everyone can provide their feedback to Jessica as she requested on her speech. Well then, Madam Timer, we have a timer's report.
John was to speak 5 to 7 minutes, and he spoke 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Jessica, had you changed your time, or was it supposed to be 5 to 7? Okay, you went for 10 minutes and 6 seconds. So I would suggest doing the 8 to 10 next time.
That was too much.
But excellent.
Excellent
information.
Yes, definitely.
And Jonathan, I'm going to put you down to 4 to 6 minutes for an icebreaker.
No, and I left it alone. I mean, I could have went there, but I saw it. It was good.
I'm gonna collect.
Always plenty to say.
Since there's no vote necessary, you can just provide comments if you're ready to turn it in to Toni. If you're not ready, you can save them and give them to her later.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Participation. Kristen.
Political parties did not begin in the United States. The first ones known to form actually formed in England in the early 1700s. So we probably picked it up from there in the first place. Essentially, they were the Royalist and the non-Royalist factions of the time. The Royalists would become the Tories, the non-Royalists the Whigs. We did have a Whig party in the United States back in the 1850s, 1860s. It began in the 40s. They only managed to win the presidency twice, and both of them died. What luck they've had. But of course, with every political party, there is that desire to humiliate and denigrate the opposing parties, which is where our political cartoons often pop up, of which you see several on the agenda. At the bottom right, you see one that was targeted at Thomas Jefferson. That's his head on the rooster, and the title that was at the top of it had said philosophic cock. The next one that came would have been at the top left, where it was attacking Martin Van Buren, who was president at the time, or running for president, as a way to get him out, to beat him. The third one at the top right, you probably wouldn't recognize, since it's not as recognizable a picture, that's supposed to be Zachary Taylor. He was our 12th president. He was one of the Whig presidents. And it's supposed to depict him as a circus juggler. He's juggling several knives. It's actually written on the knives the names of various political parties at the time. Although the Whigs and the Democratic Republicans at the time, but there were smaller third parties that were in there, including the Free Soil Party and some others. And he was somehow supposed to be juggling them. And of course, at the bottom left, the demonizing that you're so used to hear it whenever our elections come around. And we always hear people say it seems to be getting worse and worse. No, it's been happening all along. At the bottom left, you see from the 1876 election when it was Tilden versus Hayes. And it's just a simple one, choosing between the lesser of two evils. And if you haven't followed history, that was the most contentious election in our history because that came down to effectively a tie vote. And there were shenanigans going on at the Electoral College that eventually resulted in Hayes getting the election by one vote, but at the same time, in order to get everyone else to agree to it, that the Republicans had to agree, Hayes was the Republican, to end the Reconstruction in the South. Take a look at your history. That was a very crazy election. In the meantime, though, we have some other stuff to be doing. Our table topics master tonight is always intrigued with the speeches and evaluations of each meeting, but none is more interesting than the questions and answers from table topics. It is a time where you can go from serious topics to humorous to inspirational and motivational answers. So tonight, Charlie has composed questions trying to achieve a spectrum of emotions. Please help me welcome our table topics master, Charlie Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and our welcome guests. I believe you already know a little bit about table topics. The reason for it is to get you to stand up on your feet and talk. So we're going to proceed with this. Tell us the best dream you ever had. Emma.
I don't remember my dreams very well, but I guess I could do one as a dream came true instead of a dream dream. A lot of you know that I'm talking about my girlfriend last fact came here like last week. Or the week before. Actually it was the week before. And when I first met her, I felt backwards. She and I have been talking a lot, and we've known each other for 5 years almost. It's very odd how she, well, as I've said in my speech before, love a goofball geek like me. Because she's like a dream come true. Like, you think, oh hey, you like both male and female, or rather, no matter what gender, or race, or creed, or whatever. Doesn't matter to me. As my therapist has put it at one point, you like people, not gender, race, or creed. With that, she's from Vietnam. She's vision impaired, and she needs help with a lot of things, and she just recently hurt her hand. I'm helping her with all of those things, and she helps me with a lot of things too. She is my dream come true.
And I forgot to ask before we get enough. Would you be interested in trying it? Okay. What mischievous thing did you do to your parents that they did not find out about? Toni.
Me? Mischievous? You are looking at the goodest little girl in the whole world. And I'm working on making up for it. mom's dream come true. And we were a very close family. I learned early on to respect my parents, to respect all people, to never lie. Of course, telling the truth gets you into trouble in a different way. You don't have to remember how you lied and what you said, and it's much easier. I'd rather tell the truth, and my mom and my dad appreciated it. Although when my dad sent me off to college, he said, I don't need to know if you smoke pot or have sex. I said, okay, no problem. Mom, of course, wanted to know everything. So I did share with my mother everything, and boy did she enjoy it. Mr. Tabletop.
Which of your mother's silly instructions do you still obey? Kristen.
Which of my mother's instructions do I still obey? Don't cry over spilled milk. No, I'm kidding. It's more of an unspoken rule per se, and that is to make sure that your house and room is tidy when you're having guests over. So my parents' home is like the gathering spot for everyone, extended family to come during holidays, and so we always used to make sure rooms were clean, kitchen, everything was put away, and it wasn't for like the aesthetics of, oh, we're having guests, we want to, show them a good time, make sure they feel welcome. It was more to my siblings and I to not have to deal with my mother's wrath. She would become very irritable, and a lot of colorful language would ensue if we didn't clean up our rooms and make sure our bathroom was neat and everything was put away. So more of an unspoken rule that I still live by to this day is to make sure my house is tidy.
What was your strangest date ever? Jaye.
Thank you for that question, Charlie. It is a great question, and I've had quite a few strange dates. But I really like the question you gave to Toni. Because as you can imagine, with this red hair and the freckles, I was the menace on my street and in my family, only the female version. And I was always a contrarian. According to my mother, I fought her every step. Every time she would tell me to do something, my answer to her was, yeah, but. And whenever I would be out and about, down the street, wherever I would be going, with or without friends or just on my own, trouble would find me and follow along, just like breadcrumbs, as if a kitty cat or doggy was following along with me. So I did something one day that I said, uh-oh, I'm going to get the wooden spoon treatment. That's how she liked to spank us. So before she found out about it, now remember we were in the country, and we used to burn our garbage in big barrels. Before she found out about that little bad thing that I did, I went in the house, stole the wooden spoon, and heave-hoed it into the burning garbage. By the time she realized or found out what I had done, then she went to go look for the wooden spoon. She couldn't find her wooden spoon. She didn't know what had happened to it. And she didn't go out and cut switches. She got so lost in looking for that darn wooden spoon. Yeah! Hey, the plan worked. She forgot all about giving me the treatment. Thank you.
Who's the funniest person you know? think would make this world a better place? Sara.
This world would be a much better place if we all had a little more patience. I see it every day. It starts out in the car, and I've got a bit of a commute, so I see those crazies, and I'm one of them sometimes. My foot gets a bit heavy, and then I'm just going, 60, and it's 45. And I'm trying to beat the clock, and that happens often. So you've got the roads. Even I feel we have months and months before the election, but look at how nasty things get, months and months ahead of time. I think there's some impatience to that whole political process. There's this rush and race to get the votes early, but there's a natural evolution of how that happens. But it comes across to me as just flat out impatience. The world would be better if we listened, we interrupt, we're thinking what thoughts. I'm already thinking, what am I writing for Jessica's evaluation? And I'm not paying attention to the table topics. That's awful. It's me not being patient and trusting. The words are gonna come out and they may not be so great. So I find that I could go on and on and on, but I see it every day within myself, I'm guilty of it, and many, many others. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Do I have time for another one? Are we short of time?
You do. You're fine, Charlie.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. What would you like to be said about you at your funeral? Richard.
Well, I've never thought about life after death, I guess, is what they're saying about me, but I would assume that I hope that everybody enjoyed me and had a great time, and not, everyone says, I hope nobody's sad or crying at my funeral, and I hope I'm having a party. You've heard this before, right? People want to celebrate my life. Well, I want people to be sad. I want people to miss me. And I want to make such a profound impact somewhere along the line in life, not sure where it'll be, but I hope everybody enjoys me so much that I am a loss to the earth when I go, and it is saddening, and they're saying great and kind things about me, and that I was extremely funny, a fantastic Toastmaster, one of the best table topics masters. I hope you'll be there. Well, no, I don't.
Give him the green.
What is your most prized possession, Mark?
My most prized possession I actually received last year, I think is what it was. When I was young, I totally destroyed all of my comic books and all of my G.I. Joes, everything I had as a destructive youth. I would light them on fire, pretending I was waterboarding them. So I didn't really keep any of my childhood memorabilia. When I joined Toastmasters, the very first humorous speech contest I gave was about regifting. And in that speech, I referenced many of the things that my brother gave me as hand-me-downs growing up. And it's funny because he watched the speech that Stephen posted online. And about 2 weeks after he did that, I received a package in the mail. And when I opened it up, it was a brand new G.I. Joe that my brother had went out and bought because he heard my speech. And I just thought it was such a touching movement thing for him to do that after listening to my speech. It was very emotional and very personal. And I treasure it, and I still have it in my office on my desk, and I look at it every day while I'm working. Mr. Table Topics next.
That concludes our table topics master's job, and relinquish it to our Toastmaster.
Madam Timer, can we get the timer's report for our table topic speakers?
Yeah, just a second. There we go. All right, we had Emma about her best dream for 1 minute and 29 seconds. Toni, the most mischievous thing done for 1 minute and 40 seconds. Kristen, instructions from your mother you still obey for 53 seconds. Didn't quite make it there. Jaye, the most mischievous thing you did since you decided to change it, for 2 minutes and 6 seconds, so you qualified. Gus, you spoke for 1 minute and 4 seconds about the funniest person you knew. Sara, I forget what you spoke about because I didn't write it down, for 1 minute and 16 seconds. Charlie, you can give me that information later. And Richard, you were talking about what would be said at your funeral for 55 seconds, so you don't qualify. And Mark spoke about his most prized possession for 1 minute and 5 seconds, so he does qualify. So we've got Emma, Toni, Kristen, Emma, Toni, Jaye, Gus, Sara, and Mark.
Take the ballot for best table topics off of your sheet there. Please cast your vote. Please do so, because otherwise our vote counter is going to have to be breaking ties, and since she spoke, that might be interesting. Yes, ma'am.
If you're sending a comment to a particular person, please put that person's name in the comment, because I have two here that I don't know where to go. One is yours.
As she is coming around to
Right. It's one of the original.
No, I thought
George Washington was worried about the growing factioning that was occurring in the government and in the political society at the time during his presidency. He had originally wanted to just be a one-term president and leave. Apparently, he was so concerned about it, he decided to go for a second term. When he came to the end of his second term, he pulled out the speech he had wanted to do at the end of his first term, revamped it at the end of his second term, his farewell address, in which he was addressing this. Amongst the many parts you will have caught if you go through it, which I do suggest you do, that in contemplating the causes which may disturb our union, it occurs as a matter of serious concern that any ground should have been furnished for characterizing parties by geographical discriminations, whose designing men may endeavor to excite a belief that there is a real difference of local interests and views. One of the expedients of party to acquire influence within particular districts is to misrepresent the opinions and aims of other districts. You cannot shield yourself too much against the jealousies and heart burnings which spring from these misrepresentations. They tend to render alien to each other those which ought to be bound together by fraternal affection. Sound familiar? I've already informed you of the danger of parties in the state with particular reference to the founding of them on geographical discriminations. Now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally. This spirit, unfortunately, is inseparable from our nature, having its root in the strongest passions of the human mind. It exists under different shapes in all governments, more or less stifled, controlled, or repressed, but in those of the popular form, it is seen in its greatest rankness and is truly the worst enemy. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Without looking forward to an extremity of this kind, which nevertheless ought to not be entirely out of sight, the common and continual mischiefs of the spirit of party are sufficient to make it the interest and the duty of wise people to discourage and restrain it. It serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption. which find a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another. I would say his words are still quite as important today as they were over 200 years ago. That would lead us then to end my part and lead us into the evaluation part of our meeting. So we shall bring up our own demagogue, our general evaluator. Please welcome Richard Sapp.
Two-part to being general evaluator. One will be to introduce the evaluators of the speeches this evening, as well as evaluate the meeting as a whole. So, to introduce our first evaluator, this evening, loves to listen to people talk politics. It seems there are never any civil discussions. Either this party stinks, or that party is the do-nothing party, etc., etc., etc. As soon as people come to the realization that the problem is both parties, then we can start having discussions about more important things. Like the Twitter battle between Kanye West and Taylor Swift. OMG. Here to evaluate the speech of Jonathan Dunn, please welcome one of our libertarians, Mark Rodney.
Thank you, Richard. Fellow members, guests, and Jonathan Dunn. I'm going to be honest with you, Jonathan. When I saw that your title was Thorn in my side, I actually thought it was going to be a speech about your relationship with Charlie. So I was a little disappointed at first, but then I realized it was an icebreaker and we need to learn some things about you. A couple of the objectives in the icebreaker speech: to begin speaking before an audience and to discover speaking skills that you already have and skills that you need some attention. Well, obviously this wasn't your first, probably second or third icebreaker, so you already have many speaking skills. You have a wonderful ability to carry on an intimate conversation with your audience. And you started by engaging us all with a question. How many of you enjoyed spending time with mom and dad when you were young? That really hit home because I think everyone in this room could relate to it, and I could tell by all the hands that went up when you asked that. When I was 6, my dad was my superhero too. And if the dad is a superhero, then the son must be a superhero. And I think you probably felt that way too, because you went out of your way to hide your injury from your dad so that he wouldn't think you were weak. You had very descriptive language in your speech, describing the things that you did to avoid the thorn in your side. Sleeping on a different side of your body at night, walking through the door sideways. You gave the thorn power and control over you, and I really liked the personification you gave the thorn. The thorn was guiding my life. That's pretty powerful for such a small thing. We did learn many things about you tonight, though, Jonathan, in the speech. You didn't know what an armadillo was when you were younger. You loved and respected your father. You took comfort in Star Wars because it made you safe. And when you were younger, you were a Democrat because you blamed everything on the thorn instead of taking accountability for your own actions, the destructive behavior, the performance-enhancing drugs. As far as your delivery goes, though, I didn't tell you this. You have a great delivery and presence. But a couple of times, I did see you walk up past a couple of the people in the audience, so just keep that in mind as you deliver future speeches. Overall, excellent speech, excellent icebreaker, and at that, I'll give it back to Mr. General Evaluator.
Well done. For our next evaluator, when asked for her introduction for her evaluation for our theme tonight, political parties, she replied with, "No comment, I'm partial to the British Parliament." Please welcome Sara.
Jessica was to organize your speech, was the number 2 in the manual of the Confident Communicator. I felt Jessica opened this presentation by demonstrating how credible she is to speak on this topic. I need to trust that she knows what she's talking about. And so from her joining Toastmasters, 2 years she's chartering this club, and then a couple years she's in a conference that she's organizing, and then she is part of this group. I mean, it shows us she knows her stuff, and that was very smart to put that right in the beginning, and now we are very willing to go see what's going on with all the headquarters down to the club level. I like this. I find this to be confusing beyond the club level, which we've observed. Many of us haven't, and so we just block it out. I like the use of this visual aid, great strategy, because it clearly shows a sequential method of what happens at the club level, all the way up to the headquarters. The one thing that I would like to see different, I was a rapid note taker, and I did find it very difficult to understand what the areas do, why they exist. So the why and the what. The blocks explain the positions, but I couldn't capture what their purpose was. If it doesn't bleed through the other side, it may be helpful to put a few bullet points on the back page so we could reference that, and then the organization will be much tighter. An area that I enjoy, just overall, Jessica has a wonderful disposition. She smiled throughout the entire presentation. And just very warming, charming, made us enjoy what she was saying. The last recommendation, I found the volume of your presentation was high energy, and it seemed to fade as you went into the close. So I just recommend being aware of that and keep that level and consistent right to the end. Because that was a long speech, and it can be a bit draining. But I noticed that, like you were done, but you don't want to be done too early when it comes to the energy. The transitions were great, there were lots of questions. I think that was smart, putting those questions out there. It made, again, the organization much tighter. So Jessica, you are a driving force for our club, and thank you for serving as your model of dynamic, determined, and distinguished. Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, overall, I think a very successful meeting. Looks like we started on time. I think the last few meetings we've had have gone 10 to 15 minutes over at least, so we have fantastic timers report as of right now.
For our evaluators this evening, Mark spoke for 2 minutes and 47 seconds. He qualifies, and Sara for 2 minutes and 54 seconds. She also qualifies. So please vote for Mark and Sara.
Here we go. And Ms. Holding's not that.
Most improved.
Well, not yet, not
Well,
till after the
all right.
functionaries reports, because they're allowed to be voted as well.
Didn't know
Get
that.
those now.
Yeah. And everything look at their reports.
Functionary
Yeah.
reports.
That's right. Grammarian is Jaye Major.
Mr. General Evaluator. Okay, the first I want to do is list the people, and you guys correct me if I missed someone who used the word climate. Richard, you used it. Mark, Stephen, Jonathan, Jessica, Charlie, and myself. Did I miss anyone?
No, but you added me.
You did use it when you introduced. Okay, some colorful language that I heard, and I'm going down my page. Richard, you said, "I hope everyone is sad at my funeral." Are you kidding me? The Twitter battle between Taylor Swift and Kanye West, and that's a credit to both of you there. Now, Mark, I trashed and burned and waterboarded my comic books and G.I. Joes. Then you said, when you were doing your evaluation, when you were younger, you were a Democrat. Love it. You nailed Jonathan. Emma, as my therapist put it, you like people. I like that one. Toni, you are looking at the goodest little girl in the whole world. Hey, that was me. Jonathan, the armadillo was a dinosaur. Drinking made it not hurt. And I picked up on one that Mark picked up on. The thorn was guiding my life. And then later, pull it out, clean it up, and move on. I like those lessons for life. Jessica, unveil the mystery of Toastmasters organization. That was part of the purpose of what you were doing. To be a driving force, intent on being successful and recognized for our success. The purpose, the explanation of the 3 Ds. I like that. You need to use it. Sara, the world would be better if we listened. Then when you were evaluating Jessica's was warm and charming. She smiled all the way through. Absolutely. And I like that. Kristen, the lessons you learned from your parents. Make sure my house is tidy. And Gus, people did not understand him. They thought he was some other nationality. It makes you think. That's it.
Yeah, counters report, Ms. Emma.
Let's see if I can read this. I am wearing my glasses, but sometimes it's so difficult to read. I didn't catch anything from Mark's evaluation because I stepped out a little for a minute, but I did catch a man when he spoke. I do believe it was during his table topic. Stephen, I caught 1 double clutch and 1 and. Jonathan, I didn't catch anything. Sara, didn't catch anything either. Jaye, 1 double clutch. Susan, nothing really because he didn't really stand up in your camera, so. Charlie didn't catch anything. Toni, 1 and 2 ands. Richard, nothing as far as I can tell. Jessica, 1 double clutch and 6 ands. I heard a lot. Kristen didn't catch anything, Gus didn't catch anything, me, I did a bunch of ahs, ers, and all that.
Thank you. We're going to functionary roles, so if you'd like to take time to vote for most improved, please go ahead and do so now.
General evaluation.
And in my general evaluation, please reference everything that I mentioned earlier, as well as some additional comments. Gus, glad to have you back. Also from last week, not wanting to participate in table topics, so this time just going in head first, very confidently, nicely done. And excellent speeches, excellent evaluations. Mr. President Mark Lockery.
Thank you, Richard, our red shirt general evaluator.
Good show.
week's agenda? Is it
Oh,
making its way around?
Did it get around somewhere?
Is that it over here?
Yes, it is. Okay, our agenda for next week, we have a pretty good agenda. Toastmaster is Jaye Majors. So she'll be letting us know what the theme is fairly soon here, if not now, no, not now.
I'm thinking of one, but don't hold me to it. It could be lobster season.
Ooh, lobster season, that might be fun.
You like love.
Okay, and if not, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Our speakers, we have 3 speakers, Mark Lockery, Charles Bombalier, and Sara Hunt.
Susan, I can come off because I hope my sitter's not here.
Okay,
Sorry.
so we
Yeah,
will
just-
take you off for that week and put you back on somewhere else when you will be able to come. Our table topics master is Stephen Morgan. We have supervisor of elections, Jessica, off-counter Kristen, grammarian Toni Gittles. So we need to have a general evaluator and some evaluators, and we'll be set. We also have a few people already set for August 3rd, but August 10th, which is the week after next, we're doing Evaluate the Evaluators. And how that works is we have 3 speakers and 3 evaluators that are newer evaluators, people who haven't been evaluating that much yet. And then 3 very experienced evaluators who will evaluate the evaluations. So that should be fun. We won't be able to have table topics that week, but I did put people's names in, so make sure that you take a look at if you're going to be working on that week. So we've been signing them up, so let's hope that we still have them. Please let me know when you take a look at them. I have Kristen, Richard, and Emma as the inexperienced evaluators, and Stephen, Toni, and Jessica as the experienced. Hoping the others will do some speeches. Like Jonathan.
Yeah, you put me down. I didn't get a chance to write that down. An evaluator
Yes,
for the
I
week
sure
before.
will. Okey-dokey. And just let me know if anything needs to change.
Do you have room for another speaker?
I do.
Okay, I'll this week.
Okay, Charlie. And we still even have one more speaking slot, so let me know if you guys want to do it. You want to do it then?
Yeah, back.
Okay.
What date is that?
That's August 10th. Okay, and that's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing it.
We ready to hand out some awards?
Yes, sir.
Are we ready to hand out some awards?
Yeah!
Tonight's Tim Chastain Award goes to a man serving multiple roles tonight, but he stepped in and took the first time role as general evaluator. He did an awesome job.
Yeah.
Tim Chastain Award tonight goes to Richard. Most Improved Toastmaster Award. Best Table Topics Award tonight goes to me. Thank you.
Yes!
Best Evaluator Award tonight, Sara Hunt. And our Best Speaker Award tonight is presented to Mr. Jonathan Dunn. As a reminder, we have officer training on July 30th. I'm hoping everybody will be there. If you know in advance that you can't be there, let me know because there are makeup dates and times that we can set you up. Again, the humorous speech contest and evaluation contest at the club level, this time is going to be held August 31st. So if you're not competing, please consider joining the team to help put the function together as a chairperson.
There is a chair for the contest,
Ah.
it's Stephen Morgan.
All right. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that. Later on this evening, we do have an officer meeting as soon as this adjourns, so we'll probably discuss that amongst some other things. Does anybody else have any business? Yes, Jessica.
Just a quick update on the training, the TLI training. If you are going, if you would please RSVP on the website. You can go to toastmastersd84.org, and you can follow the links to get to the sign up. They just need to know for lunch purposes, there's really no to order for lunch. So if you know you're going to go, please sign up as soon as you can.
Thank you. Is anybody giving training during this? You're giving training?
Gail and I are doing a presentation.
Okay. You have something else that you want to?
I do. I just wanted to report on a personal level that Mom played poker the last 2 days.
Oh, yes.
And is out of the room and feeling a bit better, at least in the afternoons. And I am the proud mommy of a rescue puppy, 6 months old, who I picked up today.
Aww.
And I'm so excited. So cute, and Jasmine's still getting used to her, but she's got a baby puppy sitter right now.
Well, what's her name?
Her name is Marina because she was found wandering around the Sanford Marina. She is a pretty brownish, reddish, blondish colored dog, so some of us are calling her Ginger. But she's about 4 pounds, 6 months old. She's a terrier. They think she's a Cairn Terrier or something.
Did you get her from Judy?
Like the Wizard of Oz, kind of. And she's a got pictures. Got 30 pictures.
Right.
Yeah, I almost brought her tonight.
Did you have something
First day
out?
With the speakathon that we're doing at Seminole State, it is going to be on September 10th. I don't have any more data yet because he's still working on other things as well as school, because George Cameron is one of the teachers at school. He has a lot of professors, so he has a lot of stuff to do, such as exams. So when I get more information, I will let you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for this meeting?
And one more thing, can I have the other sheet for the
Functionary
Reports. Okay. Make sure you turn your functionary reports into them at the end of the meeting.
Already got them.
Meeting adjourned.